When you say that you fear for Pakistan, what are your fears?
It's a challenge for the world if Pakistan, God forbid, fails.
Did you experience the same thing in Pindi and Islamabad?
Very senior civilians, the most senior you can think of, that when it came to these issues that I'm interested in, don't waste your time with me. You better go over there to Pindi.
Oh my God. So do you think there's any way that Afghanistan and Pakistan can overcome this historical British problem of the Durand Line? Do you think it's possible?
I think you need strong, good leaders with the backing of their people. I think Imran Khan would be such a leader, in my view.
Key assignments as ambassador to Afghanistan, as ambassador to Iraq, as ambassador to United Nations, and then Doha, the deal. What was the most difficult assignment of your career?
I think it's a close call between Iraq and Doha.
You are aware of the fact that Imran's enemies and critics have always called him Taliban Khan for saying this thing that there's no military solution to Afghanistan. I mean, this is what his crime has been.
I mean, these are people who are saying he's Taliban Khan, or the people who are in bed with the Taliban, arming them, training them.
You went ballistic in the support of Imran Khan over the past years, right? You did series of long, detailed tweets. After POTUS had a lunch meeting with Asim Munir, then you actually have stopped talking about Imran Khan. Have you lost hope about Imran Khan in Pakistan?
No, I have not changed view. I am a free person. I don't take instructions, or some Pakistanis have accused me of being a lobbyist for Imran Khan. No, I have no financial relations with anyone. The military is a little full of itself because of the war with India. Look at it, the interest alone, perhaps General Munir has offered good things or positive things.
Assalamu alaikum, this is Moeed Pirzada. Today I'm joined by a very distinguished and achieved personality. I have the privilege of presenting this personality to you. Most of you are very familiar with him. Joining me is Ambassador Zalmay Khalilzad, who, according to his own admission in his book, The Envoy, started his journey from Mazar-e-Sharif, which according to him was a very underdeveloped, even in Afghanistan, was a very underdeveloped part at that time. But then he rose to become an important member of the American academia, passing through American University Beirut, then University of Chicago, rubbing his shoulders with some of the most distinguished academics at his time. He was in University of Columbia, then at one of the most important policy-making think tank in West Coast of United States, Rand Corporation. From Rand Corporation, he was actually becoming a part of the Republican administration, more than one administration. And then he served as United States ambassador to Iraq, to Afghanistan, to United Nations, and finally he was United States Special Representative for Taliban for brokering the Doha Accord and peace process. So this is a long journey. And then in the last two years, more than 2 years, he has taken a very vocal position on Pakistan, democracy, human rights, rule of law, and for Imran Khan. But in recent months, we have seen that after POTUS, President of the United States, Donald Trump's meeting with General Asim Munir, he has been a little silent on that issue. So I would like to ask him all these questions. But first of all, I want to thank you, Ambassador Zalmay Khalilzad. He's a very busy person, and I've been trying to find time with him. Ambassador, thank you so much for my viewers, on behalf of my viewers.
Well, thank you very much for your invitation. I appreciate this, and I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Thank you, Ambassador Zalmay Khalilzad. My first question is that I read your book. I had read your book several years ago, but then for this interview, I again read it. And I feel that very few contemporaries of your generation, starting from Afghanistan and the East, have been able to transcend this consciousness. From someone born in Mazar-e-Sharif in Afghanistan, you have in the same lifetime become part of the American consciousness, an important decision maker, an important academic. What do you think, and of control, what do you think have been the most transforming milestones in your career? Was that your school experience at Sirius, California? Was that your experience at the American University of Beirut? Was that your time in University of Chicago? Was that Rand in California? Or was that meeting your wife, Dr. Cheryl Bernard at University in Beirut University?
Well, thank you. This is obviously a very difficult question for oneself to judge what was the single most important experience, my immediate answer would be that I am the result of all those things that you mentioned, and perhaps more. And certainly, the fact of coming to America at the age of 15, a little more, had a huge impact on my thinking, on my trajectory. Again, then the American University of Beirut, the University of Chicago, studying with Professor Wolstetter, an eminent American strategist, and the other experiences of life. And also, I think, the interaction between my experiences and America, credit has to also go to the United States, that it accepted, welcomed, it made use of someone with the background that I have. And there is luck and being at the right place at the right time, taking advantage of opportunities, thinking of alternatives always, which is I learned through my education that there may not be just one way to do things. There may be alternative ways, and maybe think faster sometimes than some of the others in the policy game, to come up with approaches that could solve the problem. All of this, I think, has produced what I have done and made me who I am. Certainly, the credit goes to my parents, to Afghanistan. I don't want to minimize the impact that Afghanistan and that region had on me, and it still has a big hold on me, despite the fact that now much more of my life has been spent in the United States, in the West, if you like, than in that part of the world. But its hold is very strong, and I feel it.
At one point, you mentioned in detail in your book, The Envoy, the role of your mother in encouraging for education. You think that her role was very important in your subsequent educational academic journey?
Sure. Yes, her role has been important in two regards. One that you mentioned, she was very much, although illiterate herself, but very thoughtful, very critical mind, questions, listening to radio. There was no TV at that time in Afghanistan, and engaging in conversations and encouraging, demanding, in fact, good performance as far as schooling, school and university is concerned. And second, our love of Afghanistan. I remember that she would always tell me not to forget Afghanistan. So,
what kind of impact was meeting your wife, Dr. Cheryl Bernard, in American University of Beirut? I mean, you coming from Afghanistan, one of the most conservative, parts of the world, which you also mentioned. And there you come across in a highly emancipated, not only a normal standard American woman, but a very emancipated left of the center thinker, who divides her time and passions between United States and Austria, Germanic and all that. What kind of experience was that for an Afghan man?
Well, it was, I remember that I had come to America before then. So I had already experienced Western style of interaction between men and women. I'd gone to an American high school in California and had become aware of how different the interaction can be. And one of the experiences that transformed my way of thinking was that experience in California, and that how I lived with a family, an American family who hosted me, they sponsored me. So I lived with them for a whole year, and the mother was the mother, the father was the father. A lot of discussions about the difference in lifestyle, values, religion, even. But Cheryl, my wife to be, that I met her in Beirut, and I found her, besides the personal attraction and the intellectually stimulating, a smart, I should say, brilliant person to develop a relationship with, and then ultimately build a family with. So I'm that's one of the lucky things, and the many lucky things that from getting a scholarship to go to California, to a scholarship to go Beirut, a scholarship to go to University of Chicago, all luck, I think.
Yeah, I agree that in terms of scholarships, you have been exceptionally lucky. But coming back to the time period at the American University of Beirut, there is a chapter which intrigued me, and I told you about that how you realized while in the time period in Beirut, the conflict in the Muslim world. You saw Muslim world split apart, driven by conflict, and you saw serious intellectual challenges of the Muslim mind. Do you think those challenges have been reduced, or they have been multiplied, they have increased in their in the quantum? What were your thoughts then, and what are your thoughts now?
I think that first intellectual crisis I had was when I came to America as a high school student, seeing what Afghanistan that I left behind, what it was like, the underdevelopment that I described, as you kindly mentioned in my book. But then seeing the different world, the developed world, the advanced world, America, and raising question in my mind, what was wrong with us, so to speak, because I tell the story of how my sister, that was slightly younger than myself, died after wailing with pain for days. I think she may have had appendicitis or appendix, but there was no doctor to take her to, and someone who was at a pharmacy used to come and occasionally look at her, didn't even deal with her pain so that she would not feel the pain that she obviously was experiencing. And seeing America, it really bothered me a great deal as to what was wrong perhaps with us coming from Afghanistan, or from northern Afghanistan. Was it that we were less smart? Was there something wrong? Otherwise, were we different kind of human beings as such? And soon after I went to school, I discovered that it wasn't because we were less smart, because I could understand what Americans were learning and did okay, despite limitations of language. But when we came to Beirut, many years later...
What you concluded in your first interaction as a school kid at 9th or 10th grade, and you were in California for 1 year, and you came, I remember reading that you were shocked, on the cultural difference, right? So,
very much. And economic difference, and technological difference, and standard of living. And so it was kind of a different world, literally. And I felt, after putting aside that we were not less able as individuals, at least in my case, with comparing myself or competing with American students born in the United States, in high school. I thought that over time I came to a judgment that it was in the ways we lived there was a problem, and in how we organized or did not organize ourselves, and in our political processes and systems. So I became a bit of a revolutionary, if you like, at a very young age, that there was something wrong with the way we had organized ourselves. And I became very much fond of, maybe a stronger word might be even appropriate, of how the Americans had organized themselves. So I spent a lot of time reading the Tocqueville about democracy in America, about how Americans organize themselves, voluntarism, initiative, problem solving, an American intrinsic value. For every problem, there is a solution. We have to just find it. Let's hold of history on them, since they were a young country. America is a young country. And I wanted to be a medical doctor from an early age. That changed me to say, no, I want to study societies, politics, economics, sociology.
So you made up your mind to study history, philosophy, sociology in California, in a school exchange student.
Yeah, and a school that changed me. Although my parents, when I was very much against this, they were set that I will become a medical doctor, because I felt the need in Afghanistan, since my plan was to go back and work and live in Afghanistan. They thought that was the need, as I had experienced my sister's case that I mentioned. But in any case, lo and behold, I went to Beirut. So my parents' hold on me declined. I had more freedom to choose, and I chose politics. And it took a while for them to even learn that I had done that. So it's, but in Lebanon, I did come across.
Coming back to the American University, Beirut, you and Cheryl traveled extensively, across the Middle East, right? And you were troubled by the Palestinian issue, by the Iran issue. Even in that time, mentioned that Iran's oversized role in the region. But you also realized that Muslim political thought actually brings too much religion into it. So what were the exact thoughts, if you can tell my viewers?
I felt like there was literally, I didn't probably describe it that way at that time, but in retrospect, that there was almost a crisis of civilization, if you like, of Islamic civilization, in which Muslims across the Middle East had reflected on this question of what went wrong, and that there was a period that Muslims were on the march, educationally, in terms of contribution of ideas, of innovation, and contribution to development. And then the decline set in, and the question became, what went wrong and what must be done about it? What's to be done? And this crisis, this argument about what went wrong and what should be done, divided the Muslims into at least at the minimum 3 or 4 schools of thought, one of which was that the reason we are not as great as we used to be and others have become greater is because we lost our way. And the way to greatness is to go back to the origin when we were great and become, shall we say, Salafist, return to the true path.
Good Muslims.
Yes, become good Muslims and become fundamentalists, some have called them, go back to the fundamentals as they were. And then the other end of the spectrum were people who say we need to be like those who are great now. We have to learn from them, do what they do, and therefore we will succeed. And the reason we are not succeeding is because we are not doing what it takes to be great given the current circumstances. And best example of that was Ataturk. That you went so far as to change the alphabet, dress code, the day of the week that should be a holiday. They imitate everything to that extreme, and clothing. And then in between, various mixes, modernists, traditionalists, and what have you. And we've never resolved this, and that this crisis is continuous. The current period, I think some aspects of it, as we become weaker, some aspects still as strong. Certainly, the issue of unity of the Islamic world or unity of the Arab world has declined. More state nationalism has gained. Ikhwan al-Muslimin movement still there, but not as strong as at times it was. The Arab nationalist movement and Baathism or Nasserism is much weaker now.
Was that, do you recollect that time period as an inspiring time period in the Arab world and the Muslim world in search of new ideas?
It was, especially Beirut was an epicenter of that, because there was more press freedom, and a lot of people from the rest of the Arab world took refuge there. There were a lot of cafes where Arab intellectuals will sit and argue. Baathism had a lot of following. The Palestinian cause had a lot of support, which is a continuity in some ways. I came across, obviously, many Arabs, Palestinians from the Gulf. But I think that Arab nationalism was a strong force at that time intellectually, because of Nasser was there, and various efforts at uniting Arab states with each other, United Arab Republic that included Egypt, Syria, even Iraq. But now that has changed. But the fundamental crisis, I think, continues. It's just the elements, which is stronger or weaker, is not there. I also became, based on experience in America, a much strong believer in democracy, rule of law, equality before the law, regardless of your religion, your tribe, and of sexes, as the best way for one to be organized, to develop, to grow, to compete. And I felt in those circumstances, as I saw myself, a minor example in the scheme of things, that you could do well if you had those circumstances available, and that this should be made available in Afghanistan and elsewhere.
So when you mention Ataturk, that he was a great inspiration, he was at one end of the extreme. Now, looking back almost after 100 years of Ataturk experiment, do you think that the traditional Turkey, the Islamist Turkey under AK Party is resurrecting itself? Do you think the Kemalism, the Kemalist experiment in Turkey has failed?
I think the Kemalist, my judgment, personal judgment, would be it has been a success. It has established some rules of the game that has brought support that even Islamists operate within certain parameters that I frankly, if I could tell you, I used to say to AK leaders when I met President Gül or even President Erdogan, especially in the context of Iraq, the Turks were very interested, so I would meet with them very frequently. That I wish that our Islamists, by ours I meant in Afghanistan and Pakistan, places like that were like you guys, because one could live with this kind of balance of religion and freedom and democracy, rule of law, elections. Yeah, they're still challenges, but these are nice, better challenges to have than what the situation has been. Even dealing with the military, the Turks have have made enormous progress from TGS, the Turkish military dominant system, where there was time that I used to go to Turkey, and they would take me from the airport saying, if you want to have a serious discussion, we will take you to the military headquarters. But if you want to be seen with the diplomats or with the political leaders, you, of course.
So did you experience the same thing in Pindi and Islamabad, that if you want to have...
It was made clear to me by very senior civilians. The most senior you can think of, that when it came to these issues that I'm interested in, don't waste your time with me. You better go over there to Pindi. Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God!
By elected leaders.
You actually experienced that. You actually experienced that. That you were told that these serious issues do not belong here in Islamabad. You go to Pindi.
Yeah, let's have dinner tonight. But and I've been friends with several Pakistanis, but I didn't get to know Pakistan as well as I did in my last job, where I had to spend a lot of time in Pakistan because the Taliban were there, also the leadership. So inevitably, I went and I developed a relationship with Imran Khan and with General Bajwa and others. And I got to know young Pakistanis, the society better, because my image of Pakistan was formed by growing up in Afghanistan, which was rather negative, I have to tell you that.
Why was it negative? I mean, I thought I would ask you this question. Why is the Afghan perspective on Pakistan is almost or mostly negative? Why?
That's very unfortunate, I have to say to you. And the problem in Afghan-Pakistan relations, I've come to a judgment, is the Achilles heel of Afghanistan. It's hurting Afghanistan more than it's hurting Pakistan, although it has costs for Pakistan too. And that is because of the history of imperial British history in the region, which is that some territory that was part of Afghanistan at one point was under an agreement with Abdurrahman Khan, the Emir or King of Afghanistan, for security reasons, was taken over, and a contract essentially was signed for 100 years that they would have security responsibilities. And when the partition occurred after the British decision to get out, those territories became permanently part of Pakistan, and there was no agreement reached between Afghanistan and Pakistan on how to deal with this issue. And I believe that that problem of hostility to Pakistan, voting against Pakistan in the UN for admission of Pakistan into the UN, and having programs of independence or the right of determination by the Pashtuns of Pakistan, a program that I remember even on Afghan radio that said, this Pashtun region is ours, kind of evening news, the daily evening news program at 8 o'clock in the evening about Pashtunistan. And I think that I have also come to a judgment that this problem needs to be resolved. Otherwise, it hold on Afghanistan, on Pakistan's attitude towards Afghanistan isn't going to go anywhere, and that a process for overcoming this problem must start. But for that, you need really leaders that have a mandate from the people in both countries, that they don't need this problem just to mobilize, but that you would solve. Look at Europe; they've had territorial issues for centuries. Many world problems was caused by them and their territorial problems. And Afghanistan and Pakistan should learn from that, and a path will be found. And it's one of my ambitions for what remains of my life to help with this.
So it reminds me several years ago when he was the president, I had the opportunity of interviewing President Hamid Karzai when he was visiting there. And I asked him the question about the same thing. And an Afghan position on the Durand line, that he said that, look, no Afghan government can publicly or politically afford to consent to the Durand line. So I said, what's the solution? He says, but we are not even creating any problem for you. I mean, even Taliban could not accept the Durand line, but we're not creating any problem for you. So do you think there's any way that Afghanistan and Pakistan can overcome this historical British problem of the Durand line? Do you think it's possible?
There must be. There simply must be. And I think you need strong, good leaders with the backing of their people. I think Imran Khan would be such a leader, in my view, in Pakistan. And in Afghanistan, we're still in search of a leader that could do that. But simply, again, this may be the American influence on me, the American part of my life, that there is a problem. If there is a problem, there is a solution. You just have to have the wisdom, the intellectual ability to see options for a solution, and the determination to lead. Not to follow public opinion. No Afghan president can do this. That I disagree with that completely.
But you're also someone who has interacted extensively with both Ashraf Ghani and Hamid Karzai. You were the ambassador.
I am disappointed, obviously, with their performance, although they are both my friends. I went to school with Dr. Ghani, a smart gentleman. President Karzai and I, when I was ambassador, we used to have dinner 5 nights a week. So much so that my embassy was in rebellion that they don't see me enough because I'm spending so much time. But I think that they had other priorities, understandably, because it was, Afghanistan. When America came in, there was almost nothing there. So there's a lot of issues to deal with immediately: survival of the people, food, policing, and all that. So, but I think over time, and for Afghanistan to work, and for Pakistan not to face the potential of a two-front conflict, which I think has been, understandably, Pakistan has been concerned about the security establishment. And so there has to be a solution for this. I see the future in a regional cooperation, perhaps starting with economic and trade issues to the west of Pakistan, because Central Asia has come on, given the disintegration of the Soviet Union, in which Afghanistan and Pakistan played a role in increasing the costs of the occupation of Afghanistan, took huge risks and paid a huge price. But now these two countries, plus the 5 Central Asian countries, should be a single economic zone, a la EU. That's very ambitious, the start of EU. And I think, for example, this could be done based on the critical minerals, which all of them are relatively rich in. And to start in EU, it started with coal and what have you.
Coal and steel. Yeah. So since you mentioned Dr. Ashraf Ghani and Hamid Karzai, I'm a bit intrigued because Dr. Ashraf Ghani starts to figure in your book Envoy from the very beginning. He went to the school. You also mentioned him that he was from some sort of very rich and elitist family. He comes and joins the World Bank. Hamid Karzai appears as a character later when you become the ambassador and all that. How do you compare the two men? How do you compare the two men?
President Karzai, I think, a great symbolic leader. Open-armed to all Afghans, very good at interacting with people, poor state builder. If he watches this, I hope he doesn't mind me saying that. I think he was the son of Zahir Shah, in a sense. Zahir Shah was a unifier in Afghanistan.
Oh, you think so?
In retrospect, people saw his period as a golden era of Afghan history. Karzai was that, but he needed, in my view, a strong prime minister who could actually run the institutions, build the institutions. He could have led it, but they selected a presidential system. That they, meaning the Afghans, after we went in. And President Ghani was an intellectual, very much liked to read books, discuss ideas. He was more kind of in his own world, so to speak, and a little out of touch with the realities and how you do things to make progress to solve problems.
It's interesting that I saw an interview in which Ashraf Ghani, perhaps mentioned that towards the end of his government, he was even suspicious that you were actually doing something against him. And
yeah, I know that.
You know that. You have heard of it, you know?
Oh yes, of course, I've heard of it. Quite a few Afghans who were dominant during the Republic, as we call it, after the U.S. Occupation or presence in Afghanistan, who really liked me a lot. I was very popular with them. All of these people, including Dr. Ghani, used to come and see me all the time, and we interacted very much so. But then when it came time had changed the circumstances in the U.S. in terms of Afghanistan and to some extent Iraq, that people, the politics of it changed. People came to a judgment. We didn't know what we were doing. This wasn't working the way it was hoped and it was promised, that Afghanistan will be a democracy, Iraq will be a democracy, those will be steps toward democracy of the whole region, which was a very attractive idea to someone like me, given our discussion earlier. Then the decision ultimately was made initially by President Obama, but more decisively by President Trump, first time to get out. The world had changed. Terrorism from Afghanistan wasn't as big as an issue. There was no military solution. We have tried it for 20 years. Afghans need to find a solution to their own problem. Taliban are Afghans. The other Afghans are Afghans. They just need to find a way. We should help bring them together to discuss. But we're leaving with two basic needs. One, that during our departure, there shouldn't be attacks on our forces, because there was a belief that Afghanistan, when you leave it, that's when they get you, so to speak. The British withdrawal, one of them was very bloody. The Soviet withdrawal has been bloody. We didn't want that in America. Two, to happen to the Americans. Two was that there'd be a commitment by both the government and the Taliban that there is not going to be no threat from Afghanistan to the security of the United States and its allies in terms of terrorism. And one factor that the government wanted, which had some strong logic to it, was that the withdrawal won't happen unless there was an agreement between the government and the Taliban, and that would give the government leverage, because the Taliban wanted America to withdraw, to make an agreement with the government that's very favorable to the government. The presence of the U.S. Would get them a better deal, and that we will say we won't leave unless there is an agreement, and the Taliban must agree to these things. That, for example, President Ghani stays in power, Taliban join it. And the U.S., putting my personal views aside, thought that this was a recipe for never getting out.
Really?
Because the government will ask for things, the Taliban will ask for things that we're going to get stuck because Afghans will never come to an agreement, perhaps. And this will defeat the whole purpose of why we're doing this.
Whose view was this? Was this the view of the president, Donald Trump?
Yeah. The entire, the president is ultimately the decider. As you know, the idea of withdrawal was not very popular with the establishment in the United States. It was the military establishment, the political establishment generally did not want a withdrawal. They wanted the war to continue. I thought maybe eventually we will succeed. They couldn't persuade the president that there was a path that if we did this 2 years, 3 more years, 4 more years, we could achieve a victory, and defining it in a way that seemed plausible. And therefore, given the changes in the world, also China rising, great power relations, changing the economic issues at home, this wasn't Afghanistan wasn't the priority that it was. And the lesson is that that time has to be factored into doing things such as Afghanistan and Iraq, that there isn't an indefinite amount of time. And two, technological thing, we will come to that, also made Afghanistan less consequential being there than otherwise, because now we were capable with drones and longer range systems to hit targets relatively precisely by being able to loiter on targets and then have some system controlled by someone in Utah shoot at the target. If we had that capability before 9/11, I'm sure almost that we would have killed Osama, because we knew before 9/11 where he was approximately in Afghanistan and his team. But by the time we sent them, they made a decision and sent a rocket, it would take hours and he would not be there anymore where he was. So,
if I could ask a very difficult question. So what do you think that Osama bin Laden being found close to Abbottabad, was it an arrangement between the Pakistanis and Saudis, as the Seymour Hersh had accused, or was this just he was hiding in plain sight, as Hillary Clinton had one point said? What's your view on that, he being found next to
I'm more in the school of hiding in plain sight, because I think I was very critical, and sometimes many of my Pakistani friends were angry with me that when I was in Afghanistan, given my job, I argued that one reason for why we have this problem that we have in the insurgency not being able to defeat it in a timely manner was because it had a safe sanctuary. And that safe sanctuary was in Pakistan. And I used to, there was disagreement amongst us and the government. And I got frustrated that we weren't paying enough attention to this. This was going to be a headache if we don't. We thought we had solved Afghanistan. The victory had come at the beginning very easily. And I was saying, no. This is a big problem that is growing. And I began to speak publicly about the sanctuary, that there was a sanctuary developing in Pakistan that was going to.
Is that's mentioned in your book as well? What kind of interaction you had with Musharraf, General Musharraf? He's no more in the.
One time when I complained a lot, but Secretary Powell called me and essentially reprimanded me that I shouldn't speak about this issue. There is no proof that President Musharraf is actually behind all this. And that also that...
Colin Powell called you? Who else called you?
Personally called me, and he was my boss in a sense. As ambassador, you report to the Secretary of State. Okay. And he asked me, please, Zal, don't say this because... And I said, Mr. Secretary, Colin, I knew him because we both had served in the Pentagon during Gulf War when Cheney was sacked up. So I could be a bit informal with him given that history. That, look, I'm not making this up. Do you think I'm making this up? I read this. I have every morning the intelligence people coming to brief me. And they bring documents, and I'm an academic in part. So I read the document very carefully. I said, bring me the raw material. Don't tell me your judgment alone. I want to come to a judgment myself. I am a fast reader. So bring me the books. Where did you collect this? What did the report on the collection say? Am I reading something different? Are they briefing me different stuff than they brief you? It can't be. So either we need to find a problem to this, to a solution to this problem, Mr. Secretary or Cohen. Otherwise, I'm not going to stop talking about it, because I have a responsibility too. I'm sent by the president here to make Afghanistan succeed, and I can't succeed if the sanctuaries develop. So a second call came 2 weeks later. I'll quickly finish it. He said, I've talked to the president, Zal, and we both think you should not speak about this.
President Bush at that time.
President Bush. And I happen to know President Bush well, because I had worked for him before he sent me to Afghanistan. And I had high regards and personal relations with him. And so he convened a meeting, NSC meeting, and he's in the chair. And he asked me, Zal, I hear you have some issue about Pakistan. General Musharraf is a good guy, and he has been very helpful.
Yeah, this President Bush said, Colin Powell said.
President Bush. And Colin has reported to me, tell me what your problem is. And I said, I don't disagree, Mr. President, that he has been helpful. We overfly Pakistan territory. We bring supplies through Pakistan. There have been instances of they've moved against terrorists. The president of Pakistan, he himself is facing challenges in this regard. But there is this other part. For whatever reason, maybe he thinks we're not staying forever. Maybe he thinks that we're going to abandon Afghanistan again. He is supporting, I believe, he's a military man. He's not, if he was some civilian who had been elected and he said he doesn't know, I would believe it. Because I told him, I know that even civilian friends tell me, don't worry, don't waste your time talking to me about this. Talk to Ralph Pindi.
So what intrigues me is this, that you as U.S. ambassador to Afghanistan must have been briefed by a U.S. military, by the intelligence. But what's the briefing you were getting? The White House and the Secretary of State were not really buying it, or they wanted to ignore it in the bigger picture?
What it was, it's not, is that they didn't get into the nitty-gritty in details. And it was also because what was a priority was Al-Qaeda and what Pakistan was doing in that regard. When you have a mindset which says we need Pakistan to deal with this challenge, also I mentioned the supply issues, overflying Pakistan, bringing supplies through Pakistan since Afghanistan is landlocked. And they weren't that focused. By asserting this constantly, I made them focus on it. And then President told me, I'm going to do something for you, Zal. Yes, Mr. President, I'm going to call General Musharraf and say you're coming to see him. You argue with him. You discuss all this with him. And you tell him that I will tell him that I'm sending you. I told him, Mr. President, I think this is not very wise. He said, what do you mean? I said, I'm very unpopular, I said, right now in Pakistan, because I speak about this sanctuary issue. Maybe you should send someone else. He said, no. I want you to go there. General Musharraf is a good guy, a great guy. He's going to receive you well, I'm sure. But besides, you know all the details, and someone else.
So you met Musharraf?
Then I went to see General Musharraf. I took the ambassador in Pakistan, intelligence, military, the huge delegation. General Musharraf was extremely kind. He received me, was at the door waiting. I was very honored. And he said, well, very polite, saying, this is your second home. I know Afghanistan is in a difficult situation. You should come and and spend weekends here and so, but very, very polite. And I said to him, Mr. President, I have been sent to solve a problem. And I want to know what the problem is that I should solve. You are our friend. Pakistan is our friend. Afghanistan is now our friend. And you two don't get along. And the president has asked me, it's your job, Zal, to solve this problem so that these two friends, Karzai and President Ashraf, get along. So that's what I'm here. So I'm here to ask you, what is your problem with this Afghanistan? And so the discussion started. We could talk a long time about that, but
I want to cover so much more ground. So let me move forward. I want to cover so much ground. So of all the assignments, the key assignments as ambassador to Afghanistan, as ambassador to Iraq, as ambassador to United Nations, and then Doha, the deal, what was the most difficult assignment of your career?
I think it's a close call between Iraq and Doha. Yeah.
Iraq was challenging.
Iraq was very challenging. You had the crisis of civilization we talked about earlier, but this was an additional dimension that was very new to me. I have to admit that. The huge sectarian tension between Shia and Sunni Arabs, I found that very challenging to get Iraqis to take advantage of the opportunity of a dictatorship having been overthrown. Our expectation, President Bush's vision was you take the dictator away, people will pursue their self-interest, come together in a pragmatic way. How do we organize ourselves for success? And what it became was much more score settling and revenge and marginalizing. And I worked extremely hard and sometimes very frustrating to deal with this challenge. In the case of Doha, it was heartbreaking.
Just hold for a minute. Just hold for a minute. In 1960s, you were in the American University in Beirut, right? Am I right?
And in the 1970s. I went there in the 1970s.
In 1970s, you were there. And then the whole region changed in 1990s, and then you were there in the beginning of the 21st century as an ambassador to Iraq. So in 1970s, when you were there, this region had aspired for secular government. Ba'athists were sitting in Syria. Lebanon was a very, very secular place. You had not perhaps imagined the civil war that, like Nassim Taleb, you must have seen his book, Nassim Taleb's book, Nassim Nicholas Taleb's book, Black Swan Event, right? You must have seen that book, right? So no one expected the kind of civil war, the sectarian war that broke out in Lebanon. And Syria and Iraq were both Ba'athist. And Shah was also in 70s a very secular, Shah of Iran, very secular government. What went wrong with this region?
Well, I think that these regimes that were there did not deliver. It could be a long discussion of the failure of the Shah's regime, what caused that.
You didn't deliver in what respect? Socioeconomic transformation?
Economic and maintain the support of the people. And once for example, in the case of Iran, the Islamic Revolution occurred based on Islam and particular interpretation of the 12 Shiite beliefs that the 12th Imam has disappeared, occultation, and that he will come back one day. And in the meantime, until his return, this vicegerent who should govern would be a religious scholar, and that empowered a lot of Shia religious movements. Afghanistan, with the Soviet invasion, we thought that the Soviets would stay there forever, would not leave, because when a country on its border became Marxist-Leninist, it's one-way highway. They do whatever is necessary to win. So we supported Sunni Afghan religious leaders in cooperation with ISI and with
Saudis.
To support the most extreme, and brought some even Arab Islamists there to fight that believing that they would fight the hardest, the longest, and since the Soviets were not going to leave, the objective was how to make it as costly, as painful to the Soviets as possible, and that this Islamic extremism of Sunni version would be their problem, as they would be focused on the Soviet Union. Lo and behold, they left. So we have the Islamic influence in Afghanistan, in Iran, and this in Iranian one had its implications for Lebanon, for the Shias in Iraq, supporting Islamist elements, and the Arab-Israel conflict, particularly Syria, Jordan, and Israel. Their proxies in Lebanon, which was a weak, open but weak state, couldn't protect itself against these superior powers. It became a battlefield, and ultimately leading into a civil war.
So in the 80s, you were part of the Reagan administration, and you were dealing with Afghan issues. You also arranged meetings of President Ronald Reagan with the Afghan Mujahideen.
Right.
Do you now, in hindsight, feel that supporting these hardliner Islamists basically sowed the seeds, of the future problems the West had in Afghanistan? You supported Islamists became a power.
No doubt that's what happened. The Taliban are the kind of the successors or children and grandchildren of the Islamist forces that we had supported. Some of them, in fact, were in those parties. There were three kind of most Islamist parties and three that were more moderate, as we call them. And many of them were members, or their fathers, or they themselves were members of those organizations, no doubt. And then once the surprise happened, the Soviets withdrawing and disintegrating, we thought the problem was solved if we had engaged with Afghanistan after the Soviet withdrawal, the transition arrangements, a political settlement. Maybe we would have avoided what happened. What it was that we left, a vacuum created, and these groups couldn't come to an agreement on a government. They fought each other. They fought the pro-Soviet government that was left behind, the neighbors at their favorite. So a civil war that produced ultimately Taliban taking over Afghanistan.
Was it very painful, the Doha process for you? I mean, as ambassador, when I read your book, Envoy, you imagined, borrowing the terms of Francis Fukuyama, you thought that was the end of history for Afghanistan. There would be a multi-party, democratic, human right, woman right, education, employment Afghanistan. This is what you were trying to build up, along with the most powerful military machine in the world. But then handing over the same country back to Taliban, 40 years down the line when you first supported them, was that a sense of surrender, a very painful that what we are really doing? I mean, we have failed.
It was a very difficult situation because I had tried to defeat the Taliban and establish, as you say, a democratic Afghanistan in alliance with the West was the vision. And during the 2 years that I was in Kabul, I had been before then as presidential envoy for Afghanistan after 9/11. But then I went as ambassador. Many things were going very positively, surprisingly positively. So much so that when I was sent to Iraq from Afghanistan, President Bush said, "Zal, your mission is," Afghanistan was regarded, my mission was very successful, well done. I want you to do the same. Even find a Karzai there was what my instructions were. Afghanistan was seen a very successful meeting the targets that we had, and to go back after many years and with a worsening situation, the war not going well, with the people being unhappy, not only because of security problem, but corruption, difficulties in services, ethnic tensions, tribal tensions. It was personally sad, but I told you my mission, as described, was get us out safely, Zal, and get the Afghans to talk to each other and get the terrorism commitment. Now, Doha Agreement did all that. I mean, there was a Taliban commitment not to attack withdrawing forces, the Afghan government, of course. And then there was a commitment on terrorism in black and white by the Talibs and by the government. We had two agreements. And after the agreement, they met. We met that challenge that the two Afghans have to meet. But what the issue was, what I had said before, is should we have made withdrawal conditional on an agreement? Some of us favored that. But one could understand the president's point of view. This was Biden ultimately, President Biden, who thought, you mean we stay until they come to an agreement? That's what that option would imply. How long do you think it will take for them to come to an agreement? Can you set a time? No, I can't set a time. It's not under our control. They have to get along. Could it be a few years? Yes, it could be. Could it be that they don't reach an agreement? Yes, it's possible. I'm not doing that. Because then,
I think the President Biden said that.
Yeah, well, yes, that he's not going to make withdrawal conditional on Afghans agreeing with each other, and because they may not, and then I'm there, and the war essentially goes on because the Taliban had agreed that during withdrawal, as soon as the agreement was signed between us and them, they won't attack us. So and there was a timetable that we had agreed to of 14 months, which Biden extended unilaterally, and the Talibs lived by its terms, which is not to attack us, although they accepted that we could attack them if they attacked the Afghan forces while we were still there. We may have to go back to war then if they don't agree with each other in a timely manner.
Mm-hmm. So let's coming to, because I think the Afghanistan subject is so rich, especially with you who knows it, that we should actually have another full session after a while. So I want to come to Imran Khan. How many times have you met Imran Khan, and how do you found him? I mean, what kind of person you find him?
I met Imran Khan many times. I have to tell you that he would tell me that his intelligence and military people say, why do you see him all the time? See me? Because they thought they should be just dealing with, anyway with the military, but maybe for reasons of appearances should see the foreign minister for a picture taking and so on. And
or visit GHQ more often.
Yeah, well, if these issues that he wants to deal with, it's not your issues kind of thing. And besides, your prime minister, he is not of the same level as you. But nevertheless, he was very kind. Always, we saw each other. We had a good, solid discussion. I appreciated him, what he was. We talked about Pakistan too, about his life. And I believe that he was a real patriot of Pakistan, and that he could have lived a grand life, say in London. His marriage. He was a very successful star. Well, he decided to come back home, live with his people, and work hard, hospital building, doing other things, and taking all kinds of risks, and they should treasure someone like that.
They should treasure someone like that. But, so was Imran Khan...
And I also became very positive towards Pakistanis because I spent a lot of time with him. I spent a lot of time with young Pakistani entrepreneurs, went to dinners with them and so forth. Wow, these are very capable people. Not this image from Mazar Sharif of these are, a negative kind of attitude. They should be. They're world class. They could be a major power economically and otherwise. They are no less capable than others who are succeeding. So let the guy who wants to solve the problem, let them lead. Let the people choose what they want.
Interaction with Imran Khan change your perspective on the Pakistani people.
Yes, and meeting with the young Pakistanis, both. The two were interactive because I met the others thanks to him in part.
How was Imran Khan helpful in Doha process, which kept on going on?
Very supportive, because I used to also tell him, we're doing what you wanted. For all these years, I even sometimes, when I hadn't met him yet, he would say something to the media, and CNN or somebody would ask me to comment on it, and I would respond. But for a long time, he was arguing the only way out for Afghanistan is a political solution, not a military solution. And I said to him, that's what we're saying now. So it's your job, as well as referring to General Bajwa and General Faiz. Of course, even the current army chief was for a while during that period, for a short period, ISI chief. So I had met him over time, Faiz the longest. We're saying or seeking the same thing you guys have been saying is the answer. I expect full cooperation, therefore, in order to achieve that goal that you also say that's what you want.
But you're aware of the fact that Imran's enemies and critics have always called him Taliban Khan for saying this thing that there's no military solution to Afghanistan. I mean, this is what his crime has been.
Sure, but these are the very people who were supporting the Taliban. I mean, these are people who are saying he's a Taliban Khan, or the people who are in bed with the Taliban, arming them, training them, and so forth. I never took that seriously.
You went ballistic in the support of Imran Khan over the past 2 years, right? You did series of long, detailed tweets. You angered Pakistani generals, the GHQ. You were very critical of General Asim Munir. But then people noticed that after POTUS had a lunch meeting with General Asim Munir, in May, I think, in June probably, then you actually have stopped talking about Imran Khan. Have you lost hope about Imran Khan in Pakistan?
Well, no, that's not. First of all, that's not true. I've even tweeted recently, free Imran Khan, because sometimes you have to wait for an opportunity. If you say the same thing at someone like me every day, which I can appreciate people who are worried about Imran Khan wanting to do that. No, I have not changed view. I am a free person. I don't take instructions, or some Pakistanis have accused me of being a lobbyist for Imran Khan. No, I have no financial relations with anyone in Pakistan, or Imran Khan, or his family, or his party. No, but I support his release because I fear for Pakistan. I know right now the military is a little full of itself because of the war with India and the popularity may have gone up. But these are transitory things. The reality of life, of people's daily life, their freedom, their right to choose and choose their leadership is going to be permanent. This is temporary. That's permanent. So I fear a meltdown. If this is all trumped up charges against Imran Khan, there's not an independent judiciary looking at things. The Pakistani military has sometimes sent messages that if he would only admit that he or apologize for attacking the military facilities, something that he denies that he had a hand in or ordering anything like that. But the solution is freedom for Imran Khan, a dialogue among Pakistanis about the future, and a rule of law and a democratic elections. Pakistan is capable of this. Pakistanis are capable. Maybe some people in some place, I don't know where, might not be capable of, and they would need adult supervision from a dictator or a strong man. No, Pakistanis are, in my judgment, having met many of them, having friends among them, they're very capable of running their own affairs if they will be the rules are followed, they're clear, they can do that, and that will save Pakistan. Right now, you see the problem of terrorism, the problem of insurgency, an economy that's very fragile and dependent on foreign handout. That shouldn't be Pakistan, in my view. And
agreed.
I hope.
Ambassador Dr. Zalmay Khalilzad, you're someone who opted not to study medicine. You got deeply passionate about history, philosophy, law, sociology. You served in the U.S. administrations. You have been a diplomat, and you have been an academic at Chicago, Columbia, Rand, in policymaking institution. When you say that you fear for Pakistan, what are your fears?
Well, I fear a meltdown. I fear increased violence, and the military says that they will control it, but the control is democracy and rule of law and respecting people's right is a better way to control rather than warfare. Warfare can solve an immediate threat or challenge, but the underlying conditions will propel reorganization and going at it again. And I worry about that in Pakistan. I worry about talent leaving Pakistan because of the challenges that it is, or talent that can't feel safe to go back from abroad. I believe that Pakistan is so important, 250 million people, strategically located, nuclear weapons, although that's a permanent condition to have nuclear weapons. But I think in combination with that, it's a challenge for the world if Pakistan, God forbid, fails. And you have a meltdown. I wish Pakistan very well. I want it to succeed. I have no other desire than that. And it's my judgment on two fronts that I feel strongly about. A better relationship between Afghanistan and Pakistan, and a Central Asia that is economically moving towards integration, connectivity, that provides a strategic depth in many ways. And two, that democratic Pakistan. I believe strongly that Pakistanis are capable of running their own affairs. The rules have to be set. Leaders cannot be selected by some cabal within uniform. People decide based on their programs, their personalities, their history, the vision they have, and Imran Khan, I'm sure has learned, or should have learned from running this government the last time, and there were issues of people and some organizational, but let the voter decide who do they trust their future.
Before my link expires, my last quick set of questions.
Yes.
Many Pakistanis, especially the Pakistani American diasporas and Pakistanis around the world, had invested into the political process, and they were very hopeful that with the change of guard in White House, with President Donald Trump, especially the way you have been close to Republican Party, and Richard Grenell was taking a position, many other congressmen was taking a position. They thought that White House under Trump will persuade the Pakistani military for political reconciliation, for release of Imran Khan, political processes, jump-starting the democratic thing. But Donald Trump embraced General Asim Munir and an unprecedented luncheon meeting with a serving military general that hasn't really happened in contemporary times. So what has changed with this Indo-Pakistani war of 4 days? Donald Trump has appreciated the Pakistani leaders, the strong leaders, so many times. What went change? I mean, if you wear your academic and diplomatic heart, what has changed?
I have to tell you, I don't know for sure. I have whether there is some immediate issues that are affecting the calculation. I know that from my previous service in the Trump administration, that the president has very warm regards for Imran Khan. They had known each other before either one became politically active, and I know he asked repeatedly during that period about having Imran Khan come and visit, and it was a very warm visit, not only meetings in the White House, but taking him to the family quarters, a tour of the whole White House, which rarely happens, and his wife participating, although Imran Khan didn't have his spouse with him. So the feeling is there, the history is there. What are the current circumstances that has caused that? There was this conflict, obviously very important, that happened, but I believe that Pakistanis, it's first their responsibility, I have to say, to deal with this problem. They shouldn't look primarily to America or a foreign power to come and change their internal circumstance. I think the general tendency of America right now is not to get entangled in internal affairs too much, because of the experiences of Iraq and Afghanistan. That is a tendency that is there. Pakistanis have to recognize it. Afghans keep complaining to me about that too. What is Trump is going to do to solve our problem? They have to solve their problems. They should not lose hope. They should not lose determination. It's more about their lives and their future than American look at it. The interests alone, perhaps General Munir has offered good things or positive things in terms of dealing with the interests that the United States has. So I think Pakistani shouldn't expect too much.
Everything from the United States. Ambassador Zalmay Khalilzad, it has been a rare treat talking to you and listening to you. And I hope I will have good feedback. And I'm sure and I hope that we can talk again. We can talk again on these issues. There's so many issues I had written over here, but I have not been able to raise them. But thank you so much. I look forward to
thank you. I send my regards to all your many viewers and your friends and your admirers that will be watching it because of you. I thank you for this opportunity, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you once again.